Hello, everyone, and it's Reckoner time. Oh, I have no items. Interesting. So, weird choice, since I've only done, Process and Snakewater. This is quite an uncommon map. However, it's my understanding that Reckoner is in the map pool for RGL this season, and I've already been asked a few times now about this map, so I figure I'll just get it out of the way. So, for starters, I should throw a disclaimer that, I definitely have some experience on this map. I mean, I've played some matches, including in this recent advanced season. That being said, this is not a map that has been in the North American pool consistently like it has in some other regions. So, to the best of my knowledge, there isn't really a definitive resource available from EU or OzFortress. I could be wrong on that, and if someone posts some info in the comments, I'm sure I'll pin that, and then people have that resource as well. But I figured I'd just give it my best effort here, so at least I have something out for people to at least get started with. Okay, so Reckoner is a new map. Well, not really anymore. It's been around for years now, but in North America, it's considered like a quote-unquote new map, as in it's just not a staple that people are very used to. So let's get started. So with the rollout, I do have, I do have all the rollouts in my rollout video, which should be here on the second channel. But just a quick primer. So it's actually, I've been wondering if it's better to hit the ramp slide. I don't know if it really matters. Whatever. I think just a regular jump is best. Now, most of the time in what I would do is go through rollout and try and hit this ramp slide and land in cargo. And then from here, you have your pack. Your first sticky can be towards their cargo where you're expecting them to walk out. And it's just a pretty standard rollout, the one that I was doing the most regularly. Now, I have seen EU demos roll out to Toxic, which, yeah, from here, then there's this pack. You have vision kind of the entire way, which is nice, but ultimately doesn't really put you in that different of a position than the cargo rollout. So they're pretty interchangeable. It's just a matter of which is faster and more consistent for you. Now, you don't have to roll out to your side, and you can, in fact, play the other team's side for an aggressive their side mid, similar to how you might do that on a gully wash. You roll out big door and then try and walk up the other team's side. Same principle applies here, only you're going to be rolling out lower. You can dodge that and actually land in lower. Let's see if I can replicate that. And this is just a crouch dead, of course. Whatever. Pack is here. And then, yeah, your main objective for this mid is going to be to walk up here. So that's it for the rollouts. Let's talk mid fights then. So, by and large, there's multiple ways to play this mid. I've already talked or alluded to walking up the other team's side. Kind of the standard is just playing your side. And a lot of what I'm looking for on Reckoner is just damage across the bridge. And damage on the crate is nice as well, because typically the way teams will position, this is a nice place to be standing if you can. It's just nice, kind of micro high ground, so you're gonna be a little harder to splash, and you also have a little bit of better vantage point on other players. It's easier to hit people on the opposing team's crate. But this is a mid where the idea of hitting players without seeing them really comes into effect, because you can easily be lobbing stickies. Oh, that didn't go over. You can be lobbing stickies over this shed and be hitting players that are standing in a very normal position. Likewise, and this is a big one, shooting over the crate as well. If you are, for example, you're bombing your soldiers and you're trying to walk across the bridge, if you see the entire team kite out of your vision here, you can just be annihilating them with stickies from where you're positioned here, because those are all going to be landing right where they're standing, and you can do a ton of damage without having to fully commit across and see them, right? So understanding where teams are positioned in this kind of lane, it's very easy to get damage on them without necessarily having to see them. So that being said, yeah, you're just looking to get damage. Shooting on the shed can be quite nice damage against a scout or a demo or someone who wants to be standing up there. And yeah, you're just looking for damage. If your soldiers want to bomb, then you're going to be trying to cross point with it and, you know, get damage during the commit. Same way you would on any other map when you're bombing and committing. That being said, that's just kind of the standard mid where the other team does the same rollout that you do. And they're playing their side, you're playing your side, right? That doesn't always happen, and in some cases the other team might roll out underpass and try to contest your side by walking up. And in a mid like this, so early on crate control is going to be very important, and you want to be sure that you're taking care of that. But your main job is to prevent their walk up, and this is pretty easy to do. Typically, as long as you're given the room to actually do it. And this is actually, if you can get the timing down, then, you know, a sync can just kind of end the mid if you time it correctly. But yeah, you're just mainly trying to contain them because, of course, that's like low ground for them. As long as your team can control this crate, then anyone up here is just going to annihilate their team. And you're just trying to prevent them from getting good positioning, basically. Some other mids I've seen teams do. I've seen teams play like a push left mid, which I think is okay. It's worked against my team, but I think it worked because my team was misplaying the mid, and instead of, we would just play very passively on the crate. So the benefit of this mid is that the place that, you know, scouts would like to stand, maybe a soldier would like to stand, this nice high ground positioning on the crate, is very far away from that, and it's going to be difficult to adequately deny the other team taking space. So if, you know, you're a lone demo trying to spam them out, then you might lose the damage trade and either die or be forced to back up, and then they get a bunch of positioning, they can take your cargo and stuff like that, and you kind of get backed into a corner. However, I'm not sold on this because the other team, and let's just imagine that the other team's doing this on my side, and I'm just playing blue. So it shouldn't be too bad to just take bridge as a result, and then they're just stuck on the low ground in the corner, and they all die. So in my opinion, if the other team's trying to push your right side, then, you know, not trying to stack this passive high ground and instead take this more aggressive, but, you know, still, or way more potent high ground, is going to be much better. But yeah, that's something to take into account. You can be playing left side, and this is not a mid I ever played, so I don't have a ton of experience, but of course you'd just be looking for damage as you're trying to take this positioning. You know, same you would if you're trying to take positioning on any mid, for that matter. Now, last thing, you can still play this aggressive their side mid, and again, you're looking for damage across as you're walking up. This is also a nice kind of sync, or at least just lobbing stickies over as you're walking up. You can be doing a lot of damage to a player that's going to be trying to hold against that. It's similar. I don't have like the specifics to talk about like I might for a gully wash their side mid. But you're just trying to establish this kind of positioning, and this is a mid where it's going to be over pretty quickly. All right, that's it for the mids. Now, let's go to last and talk about disad last. So, typically on last, now you always want to have point trapped. Oh, I got my items. Zadaluchi is a little annoying. Let's so disad last. You always want the point trapped. And the curious thing about this point is on this area here, on the red side, it's brown, so it looks like a chocolate bar. You can actually cap the point up here, which is an interesting kind of design decision, controversial design decision. A lot of people wanted it removed, and the mapper was intentional about keeping it. But point being, this is a very, very large capping area. So most of the time on Reckoner last, I will put all 8 stickies on this point. for a couple of reasons. Not only because it's so big that you sometimes need those extra stickies to deny the cap, but also the rotation is, the rotation for the kite is very, very, very slow. Maybe even slower than snakes, which is already, like, you have to do a lot of walking to get to the other spawn. So all 8 stickies on the point is what I prefer. Now there are a bunch of like tiny little places to hide traps like all over that could potentially get a pick in the post Uber. So it is up to you. But if you find that the other team's getting cap time too reliably, then it might be worth putting more stickies on the point. But basically, playing right side is totally fine, and you are just oftentimes just playing to kite left, kind of by default. It's very difficult to cross with an Uber because it's a very wide last point. But there might be some cases where you might want to come back out right. Most of the time, however, the other team's going to be ending on the side they used in on. And you're going to want to be kiting to the opposite side. Same you would on any other map. So you want to be kiting to the side that the Uber is not ending on. And that's, of course, assuming a top right Uber, because that's a very standard Uber to take. If they like take space anywhere else, then, you know, you can linger, figure out what's going on, and then either kite or stay, depending on what the other combo is doing. Okay, pretty straightforward stuff. You know, same disadd last stuff applies, where you just want to be primarily focused on the point. If you can get picks and damage on other players, that's great and helps your team win. But the point is just the most important thing. So it's fine to be focusing a lot of ammo and effort on denying it. Okay, let us talk evens on last. And evens on last is tough. It's not something we, as a team, really figured out that well. Well, part of the problem was we were trying to tell our flank scout to move the gun to a different spot, and he just kept not doing that. But anyway, so for even Ubers, there's a couple options. You can just play kind of a standard option where you are playing top right. And from here, you're denying this door. You can help deny main a little bit. And it's very straightforward. Yeah, it's mostly just denying the door, similar to how you would on like a snake water, I suppose. Now, a more robust hold, in my opinion, is, you know, similar in principle to a lot of other holds on a lot of the other maps. So you can think like Metalworks or even like an anti-sniper Sunshine hold. You play a central demo with a central gun and like pretty close medic. So if the combo is kind of in this area, you as the demo can still adequately deny top right. You can't deny them from peeking the door or even sometimes taking some space through the door. But once they're up here, you can be just hammering them with stickies and doing a lot of damage. So it's not too bad. You can be shooting into main to get damage on players in lobby. And you can rotate left if the other team's trying to pressure left. So you kind of can cover all the doors, which a lot of the time, a demo rotating to whatever door the other team's pressuring is a really good way to prevent that pressure from being successful. So, yeah, very central demo with a central gun. The exact gun spots, I've seen guns here. Gun spots are weird in Reckoner Last because it's such a wide open point. Sometimes you see a gun here, which I'm not a big fan of just because it doesn't really watch a ton. And even just like a guy sacking through top left, the gun often won't react to them in time. We've used a gun here. I think honestly switching up the gun spot is not terrible because once you identify, there's a little step here. Once you identify where the gun is at, it's not too hard to actually spam it over main, right? Where if you know a gun is here, then you can be spamming that out. So switching it up might not be a terrible option, but I'll talk more about that when I actually do a full map review for demo for like the entire team rather than just demo. But yeah, I am a big fan of just playing kind of central, being able to be versatile and rotate to wherever the pressure comes from. It's a pretty good option. So let's talk pushing last. And there's a couple options here. So for starters, Bats is a door you can dry push out of. It gives you some nice high ground. You do have to worry about some blind bombs, like coming from the rollout side of things, or even from like Shutter or just any random soldier lurking might be able to blind bomb this door. But it is high ground. You can be spamming out the team that you're expecting to leave toxic. There are, of course, traps you have to watch out for. Just the same stuff that you have to watch out for with any dry push. But that is an option. Likewise, you could be going Shutter, which again is fine. This one is nice because it does give you some vision. Now Shutters are much more trappable, so you have to look out for that. But this is a dryable door. And dry pushing out a Reckoner is not terrible. It's not like a case of like Snakewater, for instance, where even when you have like a pick, a lot of the time you're still just popping out anyway because it's just so difficult to dry push. It's definitely more achievable on Reckoner, but it's still a last point, which is always going to be hard to push out of. So let's talk about where you'd want to pop out. And honestly, Bats and Shutter are not terrible doors to pop through, in my opinion. I do like Dungeon quite a bit as well because you're already so deep that the other team could just be caught. Now, the thing about a Dungeon pop through is the Batcat potential is really massive because, you know, let's say there was that soldier lurking, rollout trying to potentially bomb, you know, the team walking through Shutter or Bats or something. Well, now they're just trying to get behind, or they might even go behind like a door that the combo was expected to be going through, like Shutter or something. And the flank's going to have a tougher time clearing that. And there's just going to be... You're already so deep that there's just inherently going to be multiple players behind pretty often, and sometimes their best options will be to shove last. So your flank has to play that really heads up and make sure that they're baiting and watching everything adequately. But that's a potent door to pop through just because you're so deep. It's going to be much easier to catch players that are leaving toxic. Now, if the team is playing to leave cargo for some reason... then honestly, a pop-through rollout might not be terrible, since it's just such a closed door as well. But yeah, really all these doors could be viable to pop through. Bats might be the weakest, just because it's the furthest away. So if a demo... Well, a demo could actually just land on top of Shed, and then... they're totally fine. They're not like... If you overbomb, then yeah, you're not going to get caught up to. I don't know. We didn't actually play that many pop-outs of Reckoner last, from my experience. So I'm just kind of sussing it out based on just, like, fundamentals. So anyway, those are your options for pushing out of Reckoner last. So let's talk Disadd on 2. Now, Disadd on 2... You mainly play to leave either Bats or Shutter. So Shutter gives you better spam and vision of Toxic, whereas Bats gives you better spam and vision on Cargo. It really is up to you. I would just leave where your combo is leaving. And yeah, if you can maybe predict where they're going, then you might prioritize one over the other to watch traps. So if, for instance, you have, let's say, Cargo trapped up, then you might be playing to leave Bats, so you can spot that, versus, you know, playing to leave Shutter, then it's a lot harder to. Likewise, if you have Toxic trapped up, then you might play to leave Shutter. Similar to how, you know, whether you leave Kitchen or Saw on Snakewater, you might pick one over the other, whether you want to watch traps Catwalk or watch traps in Wide Saw. Okay, those are your main, and again, Disadd is very straightforward for demo. You want to have traps up before the other team's pushing, and you want to just play the door. Play as much spam as you can, but make sure you're getting out alive, and hopefully unharmed. You can take a little damage, but you know, you don't want to be a huge heal burden in that transition. Okay, yeah, very straightforward Disadd. And rollout might be fine as well for like really nuclear spam through Cargo. That's totally fine. Because again, it's very easy to regroup. Just don't linger here because you don't want to get bombed and be alone. All right, now let's talk evens on 2. Evens on 2 is kind of weird because you do play to rotate between doors. So usually by default, flank will be watching Toxic, and you and your combo will be around here playing cargo. And this forklift really gets in the way of things. It's such awkward geometry here. But yeah, you can just be playing to spam this. You can kite aggression back and just be holding traps, you know, just preventing people from getting through. This is a very open door, so a soldier can be just bombing through and trying to do something. Something that I was actually having trouble with in one of our matches was them just effectively double sacking through this door to try and kill me. And because, you know, there isn't a lot of room to work with here, them committing the soldier and the scout, it tended to work. My alternative was just don't even try and dead on the soldier and just keep the scout out. And then I started living again, and things went well because I trusted my team to kill that guy. But yeah, there's a lot of different things the other team might try and do through this door. You're just trying to play to deny as much as possible. Now, if they rotate Toxic, it's a bit of a long rotation to get there, but of course you can be spamming it as you're approaching. It's a very difficult door to do much through because it's kind of like a... It almost functions like a shutter in the sense that you really only peek it when you're really close. The only difference is you can't just have sticks on it, but because it's low ground, no matter which way you go, because of course it's low ground to a player standing on the point and it's low ground to someone in Toxic, it kind of functions like that, where once you're close you can actually see things, but then you're opening yourself up to spam. Usually once you get to point, this is something that's just very easy to contain, right? So it's just a matter of spotting and making sure that you know their combos pressuring there, so you can rotate in time before anyone really gets through. But yeah, you're just playing to deny the spam, playing to get damage on players pressuring, all just the normal demo things. It's just the geometry of these doors are a little bit different than you might be used to on other maps. Okay, so that's evens on 2. And as far as like, and that's for the sack. As far as the counter sack goes, and I should have mentioned for last as well. Counter sack on last, a lot of the time, bats is a solid option. Shutter's a little difficult to do anything because a demo can just kind of carpet it out, and you can't really do much against that because he's just trying to waste time until his spawner shows up, right? So, yeah, bats is usually a go-to for pressuring the counter sack. You just don't want to commit through the door, of course. In case it's trapped or whatever, unless there's a surplus of space because they're playing exceptionally passively. But counter sack on 2, you have some options. I would usually just go whatever door you were already at just to be faster. But you can be pressuring cargo. The side door of cargo, I'm not so sure about. This seems kind of out of position. It's easy to get kind of wrapped wherever, and it's just much smaller. This is a much more comfortable door to be pressuring in, and a lot of the time there's going to be a player on this shed, just players on bridge, and you're going to want to just be spamming them, trying to, you know, all the normal counter sack stuff or sack stuff, just get damage on either the medic for your sack or get damage on the player that's going to deny your sack so that they're less equipped to do so. And similar thing for Toxic. Toxic gives you a much better lane to see them, but a lot of the time you don't really have the luxury of going all the way over to Toxic because you're just kind of here already. So, yeah. With that out of the way, let us talk about pushing in a mid. So, again, a few options. You can... Let's start with the dry doors. So, honestly, any of these doors are options for a dry push. You can dry push cargo. And again, it's pretty far back, so the other team's not going to be as equipped to spam you out. You just have to watch out for traps, bombers, snipers, all the normal things you look out for when you dry push. But you're just looking to establish some positioning, and then just all the normal things you do when you take a point, which is lock out the doors so that the other team can't re-push. Same deal applies for Toxic. Now, Toxic is nice because it gives you all this vision. The Toxic sniper sightline is much worse, however, and I'm not sure. I mean, a sniper here would be able to see if anyone walked up to the point, but I don't think it would see anyone in Toxic, which might be a new addition. I remember there being like some crate or something of snipers. I don't remember. I could be misremembering. But yeah, this is a very wide or a long sniper sightline that you have to look out for before you actually, step up. But it gives you a lot of vision, and you can already be spamming out players as you're walking up, which can be quite nice. Now, there are some... I'll talk about that for like a full map review. It's less like random hiding spots, which I don't know if these still exist. I know you could stand up here in some versions. No, it seems fine. There are just random hiding spots, though, that you have to look out for. Okay. And for Underpass, as a dry door, it's not horrendous. Like, it's not like pushing out of a lower lobby on process off your own last, where you're just expecting to get forced every time, no matter what. But it is low ground. It is kind of a blind angle through which a lot of soldiers could be timing you with a bomb. But, you could maybe get away with it. As far as pop-throughs go, I think Toxic is the worst for popping through and probably should be reserved for a dry push, just because it's so far away, it's going to be so difficult to get to the team. So I would really only be popping through Toxic if you were going there to try and dry push, and then they're all caught, in which case, of course, you want to use your Uber and catch them. Cargo is an option. I'm actually a bit of a fan of going the small door in Cargo for a pop through. Now, you have to be careful because the routing for your scout to catch up to you is a little weird, or a little slow, rather. So if you're bombing over this crate and landing on the other side, you might not be getting flashed for quite a while, in which time you could be dying. So you have to look out for that. But this is pretty close. Actually, the closest... Well, it's pretty much tied for Underpass in closeness. So you might be able to catch a lot of people trying to exit Toxic or Cargo or something. So... yeah, I'm a fan of this door as a pop-through door. This door, not so much, only because they're the... well, you could make the case if they're on bridge or something, in which point it doesn't really matter because they're caught completely anyway. But point being, since these are both in Cargo, you may as well go to the door that's closer and a little deeper, in my opinion. Now, Underpass, I think, is a good pop-through door as well because, again, you have a similar... I didn't do that very well. You have a similar bomb that you can potentially be catching players with, and they basically function as kind of the same door, honestly. It's just that it's just how you get to them might be different. So, like, if you're positioned towards Cargo for whatever, or Toxic, then you could be just routing towards Underpass for a pop-through, or, it's just a matter of preference. Yeah, those are your main options for pushing into mid. So let's talk Disat on mid. And Disat on mid, you can play to leave Toxic, or you can play to leave Cargo. They're both fine. Toxic, of course, gives you better vision, which is usually preferable. So I tend to prefer leaving Toxic. But Cargo is totally fine as well, and sometimes you might find yourself over here anyway. Yeah, both fine doors to leave. And again, all the disad stuff, you want to have traps up already and be in a safe position by the time they're pushing and get as much spam as you can before getting out. Now, let's talk evens on mid. So for starters, as far as pressuring for a sack goes, you mainly want to pressure Cargo or pressure Toxic. So if you're pressuring Cargo, you're looking for damage on the players holding the door close. And is there a point I can compare this to? I'm trying to think. Well, whatever. How does this play, which I'm trying to compare it to? Essentially, a demo can be holding this very close and peeking into it and getting damage. But as you're getting damage on that guy, or controlling that space, you're slowly but surely getting a deeper and deeper peak for your team. So you want to start off by, working people that might be close here off the angle and then slowly peaking more and more. It's actually somewhat similar to Sunshine Last pressuring left side, where you initially want to spam the soldier off the crate, and then, the demo might rotate and you're trying to get that demo off the angle so that your team can peek a bit deeper. But yeah, you can be... That's mostly what you're looking for. You're just looking to spam their demo and whatever players are holding this door off the door as much as possible. Now, if you can actually get a deep peek, then you might be able to start getting damage on medic and the rest of the team, which is great. But a lot of the time, it's going to be pretty difficult to do that. But something to consider. You're just looking to spam people off the door and get some room for your team to work with in this really wide open space, right? Well, it's not wide open at all, but by choke point standards, definitely is. Now you can pressure Toxic as well, which again, you kind of treat it like a shutter. You just don't want to be over peaking it. You don't want to get yourself caught. If there's just carpets everywhere, then of course, I don't think I have to tell you guys to not just jump on 4 stickies, but it's just a matter of getting as much value as you can. If you can be spamming people off high ground or something, then you might be able to buy some time to actually adequately charge a sticky and pressure. Now, if the other demo doesn't rotate to you, this is going to be a lot easier because you just spam a soldier off and then suddenly you have carte blanche to start charge stickying, spamming people. And in some cases, your team might want to even take space, potentially even take an exchange or something. Because if you're that deep and you get to take an exchange, then suddenly, if the exchange goes well for you guys, you might just get the point for free rather than having to sack for ad to get the point. But that's assuming, a lot of things go well. It's just a matter of being heads up and understanding stuff like that. And that's not specific to Toxic, of course. That's just TF2 fundamentals in general. But yeah, just looking to spam people off the door, get as much room as you can, and potentially spam out the medic. Just normal stuff. As far as counter sack is concerned, just playing bridge. I like playing on top of the shed, and you're just looking to spam out whatever door they're trying to pressure. Just deny any kind of pressure from the other team. Just make it so that their soldier sack is soldier counter sack is just the soldier and nothing else, and your team should be able to handle that no problem. Okay, let's talk about pushing into second. So, Toxic is a door you can be dry pushing through, and of course all the normal dry push stuff applies. I don't need to repeat myself here. But what's nice about it is it's kind of far away and very easy to lock out the doors very quickly. And you're already here on point, and it's basically done. Cargo as well is totally fine. Bats, if they're playing to leave bats, it's very easy to have a sticky that just does 200 damage, because it's 50 some damage to 4 different players, and it's very easy to get a lot of damage as you're entering cargo if they're playing to leave bats. I mean, similar case to if they were playing to leave shutter. You're just trying to get damage on the players that are trying to spam you out and spam your team out for their sack. So you're just looking to lock stuff out, get that damage, and take space. Very simple dry pushes. These are usually somewhat pain-free. Now, as far as pop-throughs go, pretty much every door kind of works. I wouldn't advise Toxic unless they're leaving shutter and they're leaving shutter. Just because it's kind of a long way to get towards bats. I mean, it's not terrible, honestly. A Toxic pop is not that bad. Cargo as well is fine to use through, and this is a door you could easily pogo through, but honestly, I don't really think you have to, because bats is so close. You're really just looking you're already there. Pop through here can absolutely very easily catch people bats, and that is worth going for. So yeah, Toxic and Cargo are both totally fine to either dry or pop through. pretty balanced map in that regard. But let's talk underpass. This is an interesting door because you can, on one hand, dry push through this side of things, and it's kind of, I'll say off kilter in the sense that, you know, your standard doors teams are going to be set up for, but if you go underpass, then you're threatening like a wrap lobby, which I'll talk about in a moment. But going wide, like this soldier is your main concern, and a lot of soldiers that might be situated somewhere to maybe try and like bomb up for their sack around a corner might not be expecting you to come through here. So it's a nice mix-up for a dry push. Your other option for underpass is what I was alluding to earlier, which is that you can come through here and then immediately start wrapping lobby, which if the other team's not ready for that, then, you know, you could be taking Nuber into them and doing all sorts of business that they would not appreciate. So that's an option. Similar to like big door going behind baby door into lobby on last is something you can be doing. But popping through underpass is usually pretty bad just because, you know, from lower, sure, you can get up to here and you'd probably be able to get flashed if need be by backing up to the other side. But like this underpass is already so out of the way to get to from where your team is positioned. And jumping up to here is not unique to this door. You can do that from anywhere, and in fact, jump even deeper from pretty much either other door while still being able to get reflashed. So pop-throughs underpass are usually not that great, in my opinion. Okay, let's talk Disad on 2. So, Toxic is usually best to leave from my experience because you actually get to spot shutter. Bats you can't see, but you can still spam it, and, you know, still play for traps on it. You can kind of see through the glass of this little greenhouse. Versus cargo, like, sure, you have a much better view of bats, and there might be some times where you want to leave cargo if the other team just regularly goes bats and you want to have thorough traps there. But it really gives up shutter, and shutter is such an intuitive door to go to a lot of the time that Toxic is my preferred door to leave on Disad. Yeah. So as far as evens on 2 goes, well, as far as pressuring into last, you can maybe pressure top left. If their demo's holding it close, though, this is not great. It's just not worth it, in my opinion, when you can go to another door that the demo can't really rotate to and get a lot better value. But if their demo's not here, then I suppose you could be pressuring this, maybe even trying to take out a gun or something. Now, if they have the defensive sniper, then that's going to be difficult. And the defensive sniper, man, sniper ruins so many maps. It's really unfortunate. But whatever. So, yeah, pressuring top left is an option. Now, main, you can maybe even get some peeks on occasion. I wouldn't overdo it, but if there's already some pressure mounting and you feel like you might be able to get a quick, cheeky peek in, then it's similar to like peeking 4 on process, where like sometimes you can get away with it. And then right side, this is often the door you take space in as a team. It's not too hard to get some space here, assuming a demo's not rotating to meet you guys. You just spam the soldier off the door, and of course if they have that sniper, then that's a problem. But this is actually a last where demos will sack, because holding counter sack, well, for starters, if it is counter sack and you're alive, then yeah, just like playing on the point pretty much, you can be denying both these doors. The sack can come from underpass, but your scout on shed should be able to deal with that very easily. Same goes for rollout, and yeah, it should be fine. But as far as sacking goes, yeah, a lot of teams will just sack their demo in, and it's fine. So I've done this a fair amount. I don't think I like the single pre-sack. I think a double sticky is just better most of the time. And this is a pretty it's kind of polarizing. So for starters, I've already had tirades about how Demo is just a fundamentally strong sacking class, in particular in like a Koth setting or something during a 4-man, because the damage that Demo deals is so bursty that if you have a sticky down at the medic's feet and your pipes are out, then that medic is just risking a drop. Because unlike a soldier, where the medic could not only count their rockets and know that they don't have one loaded, but also can eat 100 damage rocket and then still hold Uber for a little bit because that second rocket can't come out quite yet. Demo, not really. And the damage between pipes and stickies can be so bursty that it makes a lot of meds more uncomfortable, and your damage output is more conducive to getting a med pick or something like that during a bomb. That being said, though, you are much, much frailer, and especially if you jump in with 2 sticks, like, you definitely want to be full buff before doing that. But there are some merits to this besides just having the demo sack through this wide open door. And part of that is in identifying a gun, because you can sack in, spot where the gun is at, and then when you come back, spam the gun through main. And then, you know, the gun is down and you can either like send a double sack, send another demo sack, or just try and take space through a door. That opens things up for your team. So if you don't know where the gun is at, then yeah, that could be an option. Oh, another thing as well is, well, I'll talk about that when I talk about the map itself for the full review. That doesn't really pertain to the purview of Demo. But yeah, that's pressuring into last. It's fun to sack, and it's fun to get forces and drops and stuff into last. I kind of stopped sacking on my team this past season just because I wasn't a huge fan of it, but you know, in past seasons I've played Reckoner, enjoyed sacking a lot, so it's really up to you and your team, but that is an option that teams will do, and it's not too bad. Okay, so now let's talk about pushing last. So the default Uber I've already talked about was top left, because most of the teams will be playing to leave left, and that's just a very intuitive bomb to do. Something you do have to watch out for is a gun in this corner. This is a pretty standard disad gun position, and it's easy to bomb across, get juggled in by the gun way too deep, and you can't get reflashed, and you end up dying. So this is just something you have to watch out for. But other than that, pretty straightforward. You're just looking to catch players in the shutter, which is not too bad. Very rarely do you have the time to cross on Reckoner last, because it's such a large open space. But if you can, that's usually better, and you want to just get damage, do whatever. Now, even if you bomb in left and the gun's on the right, I just very, very, very rarely crossed on this map. I would try and get the damage here. If the gun's over there, then I would, from left, position to take it out, and then, you know, reload, reheal, and then play for that collapse. Same you would any other last push. Now, you can be using on the right, either through main or through right side. And these are totally fine as well. Now, far right, a lot of the time you're looking to maybe take some space without using first, similar to 5 on Process. 5 and far right on Reckoner function quite similarly, all things considered. This is much easier to take space in for a pressure, though, compared to 5. And you can just be going main and then deciding what side to use to in the moment. So maybe the gun is on right and you want to walk over to the right and take that out, lock out the spawn, and then end right. Or maybe you don't know, or you come through main and then see that their combo is left, and then you want to bomb that and try and catch people on the left. So you have options for that. But yeah, all these doors kind of have their own uses as far as taking Ubers in the last goes. And just normal last push stuff still applies here. If you have the sticks to lock out the spawn shutter before the commit and still have ammo reloaded for the commit, then that's wonderful. You're just looking to take out any guns with the Uber, catch players in the Uber, establish good positioning. You do not want to be ending here in the low ground in the center, because while it feels like you might be able to like deny and react to anything, you are in fact putting yourself in a very vulnerable position where a player can easily be coming out of left spawn and hitting you, or coming out of right spawn and hitting you. You are just very easily attackable from anywhere, versus, you know, let's say you ended left. Sure, they can take space right for free, but you are absolutely defensible there, and they can't really do anything to stop you from standing here, and you just get to reload, get all your ammo, and then your team gets to commit, have your flank pinch during the bomb, get some cap time. You're just nuking everything. It's very uncomfortable for the defending team. And that's, you know, in a nutshell, why actually picking a side and not ending in the central low ground is very important in a last push, and Reckoner is no different. I didn't notice this was here. Such a nice looking map, actually. And one thing I like about it is the kind of indicate, like the gameplay indicators, right? You see where the shutter opens. Funny stuff like that. Like the red here, because, you know, spamming sticks over lands there. Whatever. So yeah, I think that's it for all the points. So let's talk sticky traps. And there are really good traps on Reckoner, in my opinion. We'll start off with Disad last. So let's get back to our last. So I just trap up all 8 stickies on the point, but I have seen, you know, all sorts of traps wherever that, you know, you can just be trapping the backside of anything to try and get a pick on a player post-Uber or something. Even like perspective stuff is going to be quite potent, because no one's going to be looking at that. Even someone like staring at spawn doesn't really see it. So that stuff can be nice, but during an Uber, I usually like putting all 8 stickies on the point. Sticks on these corners are quite nice, just because, you know, a scout that's trying to corner cat from here or something might not see them until he's already on them. But yeah, I am sure you can find all sorts of things to trap up all over. Just identify where players like to stand at and then trap that. I will say, even on Disad last, there are occasions where I will trap up left side. If I have a lot of time to trap up left and play right, because some teams will like to take space there, especially if you identify a pattern of teams liking to get through without using, then it's a good idea to, in the future, trap that door up. As far as evens on last goes, now, of course, just trapping doorways, you can't go wrong. This grate here, vent, I suppose, sticks don't collide with, so you can kind of hide stickies in them. And that applies for both sides. Just something to note. So holding top right, if you're holding it close, that's a good one to go for. A lot of the time, players or soldier will get up here for this spam, because you know, if your med is holding back towards spawn on the left side, then this is good spam, and you can deny this with a trap on the vent, which can be good. What else? Just trapping up left is nice, but if I'm playing central, I usually don't, like, you can't really spot many traps from here, so I don't have stuff trapped up other than just kind of the doors. Maybe like traps on these or something. If I see a player peek, then I can det on that. As far as traps you can set up after a counter sack, there are a lot better options. Like, basically everything in lobby can be trapped. You can have traps shutter, as well as, and I don't remember if this is something that actually, it kind of does. That's quite far though. Something like this can be quite nice, because they clear shutter. Shutter's fine, but they don't expect traps to be any deeper, and that goes for traps here as well. I'm a fan of trapping the backside of this crate, because this is just kind of an intuitive place for someone to stand and potentially spot, usually a scout, and just all sorts of walls and things can be trapped. I actually got like, I think some match I got like a 2K with these traps up, which was just a lucky blind bet, in fairness. But, you know, you're still placing stickies where players are congregating. So it just happened to be that someone was walking up here as someone was walking through there, and I killed both. But yeah, you just want to put sticks where players are going to go to and route to. But these are stuff that you don't have access to lobby most of the time when you're on last, so you just have to kind of set them up as you're retreating from a counter sack. Yeah, let's talk traps on 2. So disadd traps, of course you can just be trapping the doors as you can anywhere. I suppose something like this is probably fine. Not really a trap that I was setting very much, but I can understand why it would be good because, you know, a team trying to push through cargo might think that they're safe, but there's sticks here. Same thing applies to Toxic. Just traps on the doorway are really good. And you can even hide sticks in this guy, which might connect. You might have to use like more, actually, yeah, I don't know. I'm a big fan of this one though, in the windowsill. Because again, pretty difficult to see, and then this is just a very intuitive place for them to be walking up to. And of course, there's all sorts of little geometry things on the point that can all be trapped. Similarly to cargo, more passive traps include like here or something on like the forklift. Now, of course, passive traps are always inherently going to be less reliable than just a trap on the doorway that you can see, but these are not things that are going to be cleared. But again, often going to have to blind at those because by the time anyone's ever near it, you're kind of already forced out. So yeah, that's 2 for disadd. As far as evens goes, I'm a big fan of trapping this wall because it's not a wall teams or players are really looking at when they're taking cargo. So if they don't see you trapping it, then it's on them to manually clear it. It's not going to be in their vision a lot of the time. And it's very easy to spot, right? You know, from where you're positioned, you can see if a player's over there. I don't know. I very rarely pressured Toxic for counter sack. But I could imagine, like, trapping the pack or something could be okay. I mean, like, trapping something like this could be quite nice. If you have... I don't know. I was going to say, like, you can be trapping the side of the wall, and then, you know, a player walking here is not going to see those. But I wouldn't advise just sitting here spotting this rather than playing in a position where you can more readily deny doors is probably better. And on evens, I of course love just trapping the doors themselves. And if, you know, a soldier is consistently bombing somewhere, I might do a trap against that bomb or something like that. But pretty straightforward. So let's talk traps on mid disadd. So for Toxic, this is a nice perspective trap you can use that the other team's not going to see until they're already kind of in range. Same applies to like here, which can be quite nice. Now, for all these sort of perspective things, you know, if a player just jump spots it, then it's much less potent. So you can expect, you know, after getting players a few times, or if the players are at a high enough level, then that's not going to work as adequately. But you can, of course, just trap the doors. Same applies to cargo. I'm a big fan of trapping the pack in cargo as well, if I can. Just because this is not only a place that people stand to peek the door, but also players love to route towards ammo and health packs. And I suppose the same applies to Toxic as well. However, this is going to be much more visible because they're so low down. And this, I'm noticing that ammo pack is much higher off the ground than this one. Whatever. But yeah, pretty much any time a team will push into a point, the main health pack at that point is just gonna be taken. Just because, you know, soldiers need health or someone needs health or something, and the medic can only heal so many people so quickly. So trapping the pack in cargo can be quite nice if you have the time to as well. Well, not for disadd, not that. And then as well, some teams will dry push underpass. I've gotten a lot of value out of a trap like this against that. Because again, just kind of a perspective thing. Although I'm noticing that's actually quite visible. But I've set like that exact same trap in killed multiple people in advance, so maybe people are just distracted. But yeah, they're just trying to deny their walk up, or at least like get the pick on their walk up. Can be quite nice. I'm sure this is probably a bit better because that won't be seen while still being comparably potent. All sorts of traps on point are an option. Like this can deny bridge, and is there other stuff people use? I've seen like traps on both sides before. I've seen that work just to kill anyone walking onto bridge. What else? What else? I'm actually curious if something like this might work. Because a player would go toxic and then jump up here. Honestly, maybe. That seems like it's so terrible, but you have to put yourself in the shoes of the person pushing and like the route they take and what they're looking at. That might be an option, but I've never used it before. Now, one I'm a huge fan of is trapping the point. This is so good. Because not only like, okay, I have pretty high settings on my game, so there's a lot of bloom just obscuring that. When the player capping has worse settings, that's probably going to be more visible. But your guard is kind of just down when you're capping the point, and especially, like most of the time I get a kill with that trap, I'm all the way out here, right? So, yeah, oftentimes... well, what makes it so good is not only is it on an objective that you know a player is going to be standing on, but it's also a place where the player standing on it is mostly AFK. Like, they are not really paying that much attention to things. And also, compared to other blind debts, you have the objective notifier to know not only how many people are standing on the point, but that someone is standing on the point. So oftentimes this is a trap that I will actually hold just to see if other people walk on the point to try and stack or something, assuming it's not getting cleared or anything. So a big fan of trapping the point. Now, of course, the routing to get there is kind of awkward, so a lot of the time I will just resort to trapping a doorway instead. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of trapping the point on disad mid. Now for evens mid, you can trap a little bit deeper when you're transitioning from sack into counter sack, so you can be trapping into cargo maybe, and stuff like that. But yeah, it's mostly just trapping the doors during counter sack, nothing too crazy. Okay, now let's talk disad on 2. And again, a lot of real good options here. So just trapping the shutter can be nice, as well as trapping like deeper than that. I'm pretty sure, well, I know I tested on the light, and this is like a similar height. This will hit people. You're gonna have to use a lot of stickies for it to be lethal, but you know, if a player is trying to, I mean, you have a window right here, right? So if a player is trying to like jiggle peek the shutter, you can still see whether they're within range or not. And honestly, like a light trap here is probably gonna be a lot better. I know it's like super visible, but I suppose for blue it's not too bad because it kind of blends in. On the red team that might actually be a lot worse. But yeah, trapping stuff like this might be quite nice if you have the time to, just because, you know, against that jiggle peek shutter. Now that being said, just trapping shutter is really effective as well because you have the window to kind of assist you in knowing when someone wants to peek. And I don't know if this is I don't think this is a shutter where you can peek it without being in range. Yeah, you cannot. There are some shutters in the game where the kind of activation trigger is so wide that you can theoretically peek it without being in any danger. This is not one of them at all. So trapping the shutter gives you a lot of value from my experience. You can do similar kind of things of partially trapping the shutter below and then fully trapping it above, so that, you know, they think they cleared the trap or got past it and then they actually didn't. What else? I mean, of course, this guy I was talking about earlier is quite nice. And just traps, bats in general are very nice. You can, of course, be trapping this guy, which very difficult to clear until you've already seen it. And that's going to get someone who's trying to walk down bats or peeking over the corner or anything like that. And another one I'm a big fan of is this door here, because the geometry, or the clipping here is kind of weird. Oh, I thought this used to have like V-shaped clipping for walking into. Now it's just squared off. But in any case, Not something you really see from either side, and this is just a place players will stand in a lot, especially if they're coming from bats to point to go cap. They're going to walk in range of that, so that's a quite nice one as well. Plus, it's much easier to spot from Toxic than like bats traps are. So yeah, a lot of good options, and again, for point, you have stuff like this you can do. And then, you know, once you hear that cap notification, a lot of the time there might be some players around here. Maybe just wait a moment to like have the medic or demo, whoever's walking just a few steps behind the scout, fall victim to that. But yeah, you have a lot of options for trapping Disad on 2. As far as evens on 2, yeah, I mean, you don't really have a ton of time, from my experience, to set up counter-sack traps. I mean, stuff on like the box or the pack or something like that can be nice, and you will get kills with that. Again, something like this can be nice, and just the sides of walls in general as you're retreating out of lobby, but it's nothing too crazy. I would prioritize stuff you can actually spot and just the doorways themselves. And with that, that's pretty much it for Reckoner. Cool map. I am a fan, and in general, I think the new maps kind of favor, at least like you find more success if you know the fundamentals. Like new maps do end up being more successful for people who kind of just understand the game at a more basal level, because you can just apply the things that your role is supposed to do to pretty much new geometry, and then yeah. But anyway, that's all for Reckoner. Hopefully that's a good primer for playing the map, and will assist these North American players in figuring out how to play this for the first time. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you later.